Welcome back, everyone, and hello to any new listeners out there. We're so excited for you to join us on today's episode of the Stock Show Sisters podcast. Today's guest is Amy Cowan, the Executive Director of the Hereford Youth Foundation of America and the Director of Youth Activities for the American Hereford Association, joining us from Kansas City. Amy has spent more than 2 decades serving the Hereford breed and its people, growing leadership, scholarship, and educational opportunities for thousands of young people across the country. In this episode, we discuss the rewards of commitment and initiative, the impact of junior associations, including the $230,000 awarded in scholarships last year alone by the HYFA, and how little details make the biggest differences. With a career rooted in consistency, relationships, and purpose, she brings a unique perspective on staying with one organization and working with the next generation of leaders. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been looking forward to having you on, and I'm so honored that you would spend some time chatting with me during this busy season. So without further ado, would you mind telling us a bit more about yourself?
Sure, and thanks, Ricki, for having me. I've been looking forward to the visit as well. I enjoyed getting to know you this fall during your internship at the American Royal and then at Cattlemen's Congress as well. So thanks again for the invitation. So I grew up in Northwest Iowa on a small family farm. I participated in 4-H and just did all of the small town family farming activities growing up, and that led me to South Dakota State University, where I was a student in ag journalism, and I got a double major in animal science there at SDSU in Brookings, South Dakota.
Wonderful. Okay, so you come from an agricultural background. Did you know that you always wanted to work in agriculture when you went to South Dakota State, or what did that kind of look like for you in the job discovery?
That's a good question, Ricki. I think, yes, I probably did. I think there for a while, like anyone, I thought I'd maybe follow my mom's footsteps and work as a dental hygienist in a dental office. And I even talked about the nursing career at SDSU and different things like that. But I think one of my first trips to visit SDSU, we had a college fair at that time, and I was introduced to the judging team coach there at the time. And from then on, they told me about all the different opportunities for someone with the passion for agriculture and my 4-H background and my passions. And it just became pretty apparent that's the route I wanted to head. My family raised purebred shorthorn cattle growing up, so I always did look forward to each month going to the mailbox and getting that shorthorn country. So I think I always had the passion growing up as a youngster. I didn't know if that would totally be my career, but it's worked out well for me.
Yes, I definitely would say it has. Would you mind maybe telling us a little bit about what you remember most about starting out in your professional career? Were there any big lessons that you learned, any people that were super influential, or any big adjustments that you had to face that maybe you didn't expect at first?
It was a big step. I'll back up a little bit. When I was in college, I did an internship for the American Shorthorn Association. So that was a breed I was familiar with and grew up with. So that was an awesome summer for me and a great experience. I got to work with their junior national that summer, and it just really did set the stage for when this job opened up at the American Hereford Association. So I'd say that internship really did introduced me to breed association work, and I enjoyed it and loved the people. And so actually my judging team coach, Kelly Bruns, and he was also my advisor, he helped get me connected after that shorthorn experience with the Hereford Association. And it was a pretty big step to leave Iowa and move by myself to Kansas City, a big city. I didn't know if that would be for me after all these years. I think if I had to land in a city, Kansas City has been a pretty good match for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I would definitely agree. I kind of joke sometimes about how I got started and what my path was as a young professional, and always get asked what I want to do. Didn't really have an answer for a long time, but one of the best decisions I ever made was interning for a breed association here in Texas. Not quite as large as the Hereford or Shorthorn Association, but the Brahman breed was what I was familiar with, similar to your story. And I learned so much just from a professional standpoint, but also just about myself and what my strengths were in the workplace. So, to all of our listeners out there, if you ever get the chance to work part time or intern for a breed association, definitely can't recommend it enough. It will shape who you are, and you will meet a lot of great people who will support you throughout your career, no matter where you end up.
When I think back to it, I was very green. My family had showed I was super active in 4-H on the county and the state level. And I think when Shorthorns International would come to Des Moines, we would try to participate then, but I did not do, in high school anyway, I did not do the national show scene. I got a little more exposed to that when I was in college, but I came to a breed association just with a drive to do it and a love for cattle and the people. And I didn't have a lot of experience when it came to that kind of thing, but it was something I knew I wanted to do. And what's been so good for me is every day is different. And I like all the different things that come with breed association work. So yeah, it was a pretty eye-opening experience when I moved to Kansas City, but I had such an awesome staff. Craig Huffines was the CEO at the time, and I just loved working with Craig and learned so much from him. And when I started, I was a communication coordinator for the Hereford World magazine. So that staff welcomed me with open arms, and I was willing and ready to learn and just soaked up all I could there those first years. And that's just kind of how it started.
And I think that goes for really any beginning position, is, like you said, being willing and ready to learn and not being intimidated by a lack of experience, because everyone is a beginner at some point, and not everyone is going to come from a huge commercial operation or a huge purebred operation that has shown since they were 8 years old. I know I was not in that boat. Although we raised Brahman cattle my whole life, I didn't start showing until middle school. And so we didn't really get into doing the whole junior nationals thing until I was in high school. And although I'm super grateful for it, I think it's never too late, but it's also such a great opportunity for students that were not involved in those organizations when they were younger to be a part of and take advantage of an opportunity to intern and work for an association. But you did mention Craig Huffines, and I know him having gone to Texas A&M, and he now runs our Hildebrand facility here. He's a great guy. Pivot a little bit, but what has made your great bosses over the years? I'm not sure how many you've had, but were there any characteristics that maybe you look for in mentors and bosses that maybe make your job easier and make coming to work that much more enjoyable?
I have been super, super blessed with some great leadership here at the American Hereford Association from, like I said, that first staff that welcomed me in the Hereford world. And then not long after that, Joe Ricki came along, and Joe and I worked closely for many years. He just retired within this last year, and he was just someone that he came not too long after I had started at the magazine, and he really took me under his wing and gave me a chance. He's probably why I started taking pictures back in the early years of my career. I took a lot of show photos, and it was because Joe gave me a camera one day and said, let's see what you can do with this camera. And by the end of the day, or the end of the event we were at, I was taking the pictures at the national Hereford shows and had started my own little photography business. And that's all because of people like Joe Ricki just gave me a chance. And Craig Huffines was the same way. And now I'm fortunate to work with Jack Ward, and they've just given me some great opportunities and given me the bandwidth to take the programs and run with them. And they were just great leaders to learn from and just great people, you know.
Sounds like they were just super supportive and encouraging for you to try new things and to give input where you had experience.
They were. And when I first started at the association, it was a little bit of a difficult time with the American Hereford Association. The Horned and Polled associations had just merged. So there was a lot of staff changes that had to happen. And I remember Craig just sitting me down and saying, you know what, just stick with it. You're doing a good job. It's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road here for a while, but once we weather this storm and get everybody in the same direction, it was going to be fine. And it sure was good. There were some challenges like there is with any organization and any job, but we definitely worked through those. And the Hereford people have just been, hear us say it a lot, but it is truly a Hereford family. And I think that's what I've always valued and went back to, was that Hereford family and the great leadership from staff that I've got to work with, and boards as well. In my career, I've worked with the American Hereford Board of Directors, the Hereford Youth Foundation Board, and our junior board. And so it's really been about the people, not only on staff, but on those leadership boards as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, just like you mentioned, the leadership and the Hereford family played a big part in why you've spent your entire career with the Hereford Association. So could you maybe walk us through the different roles that you've had and maybe how each one kind of led into the next?
Sure. Like I said, I've been here in June. I think it'll be 28 years. So it has been my entire career, but there's been a lot of different roles and different responsibilities. So I think that's what's kept it exciting and kept me engaged all these years. I started in the magazine as a communications coordinator, and those first couple years were spent writing a lot of press releases. The field staff would go to shows and they'd bring back their rolls of film, and I'd get those developed, and then I'd have to label the pictures and send those out to all the press for the press releases, and just a lot of hands-on labeling pictures, identifying pictures, and getting those show results ready for the magazine and to send out to the national media. So that's what I did in the first couple years. I did some writing. I wrote some articles for the magazine, and I really did love to write. And with my journalism degree there at SDSU, that was really where I first found my fit, was the magazine and writing and working with the editorial team. And I always did have a love for the show ring. And once Joe Rickabaugh let me start going to some of the events and the shows, that's where I really found my niche. And I loved helping to plan events. Joe and I started planning a genetic outreach field day at different feedlots in Kansas and Nebraska. That was kind of my first event planning. And from there, went to the national shows. And then before too long, I took the role as editor of the Hereford World. So I did really enjoy that, and working with the team. Did a lot of writing and putting the magazines together. And that was just a lot of fun. And seeing that finished piece, that magazine printed, was just a pretty fulfilling each month. The deadlines probably were not my forte, but we dealt with those on a monthly basis and got to work with a lot of great people, did a lot of traveling for articles over the years. And I really did enjoy the editor position. And at that time, I was still very involved in the junior national event each summer, covering that, taking all the pictures and at the national shows. And after the editor position, then I moved over to the association and worked solely in marketing and with the shows. At that point, that's when I started getting experience dealing with some of our corporate partners and working on sponsorships for the association for junior nationals and for the magazine. I was selling some banner ads and different corporate ads for the magazine, and I did really like that marketing part of things. I think I did the marketing for a few years, and then 15 years ago, I think it was, I had the opportunity to apply for the director of youth activities. And that's where I've been ever since. I've now since added the director of the Hereford Youth Foundation onto that, but I kind of work those two roles in tandem, and it just has combined everything. I get to do the show part of it, but the event planning I really love, with the junior national events and the leadership events and different association events I get to be involved in. And fundraising is not for everybody, but it's something I've always enjoyed doing. And those type of partnerships and relationships has been a fun challenge for me, and just growing the different funds to support all the opportunities that we're able to give our younger people. So I do really enjoy this job. I think it's just evolved and has been a really good fit for me with the youth programs. Now, I didn't always think that was going to be the case. Didn't know what I would think of working with the junior board when the opportunity came about, but I have really enjoyed it, and it's probably been one of the most rewarding parts of my career.
That is awesome. It sounds like you have been able to have an impact on a little bit of everything in the association, and I'm sure they're so grateful to have had you play a role in so many different things and help grow the different programs and end up where you are today. It sounds like you've got the best of all the worlds and all of your favorite things that you get to do all in one job.
Well, and I think that's unique about breed association work or any association work. I may be the director of youth activities and foundation, but last year I was very active in planning our World Hereford Conference and different things like that. You do get to wear a lot of different hats in breed association work. So on any given day, could be working on an association project that's not directly related to youth activities. So that's just goes with the territory with breed association work, but I enjoy being involved in all different aspects of it.
The beauty of working together as a team on getting everything accomplished, with every season of the year being a busy season, just busy for different events and different programs. But I did want to get your perspective from a little more generalized perspective, I guess. I think a lot of research has been done that shows that our younger generations, my generation included, their job span is an average of about 3 years. And I think it's just dwindled from the older generations. And I'm not sure how much shorter those job spans can go as more generations come about, because it might end up at zero if it keeps going at the rate that it is. But what is your perspective on staying with one organization long term when job hopping has become so much more common?
That's an interesting question, and I have probably a different view than some would have. And what works for me is not going to work for the next person. And we do see a lot of these younger employees. They come and they get a good start and they're on to the next best thing. And sometimes I just wish they would just give it another year, and then in another year or another 2 years, and in those couple of years to see just what might be able to become of it. Because I do think there's been some really talented employees that come and go maybe a little too soon. And, I'm not saying that everybody needs to stay at their job for 28 years. I'm not saying that at all, because it's just not really heard of that much anymore. But I do think there would be some value in just not jumping ship the first time something comes along, and just having a little bit more loyalty, because it's just so rewarding to see the programs that you start come to fruition, and just to be a part of seeing some things come full circle. And I don't know, that's my perspective on it, whether that's right or wrong, but I do think that there could be some value in maybe sticking with it, because not every job is going to be rosy and there's going to be challenges. And I think that's in any work environment. But I think a lot of people are guilty of just jumping ship and thinking the grass is greener. And then I talk to them a few months down the road and maybe it wasn't always greener. And I just hate to see a young person just move too fast.
Hi, it's Rachel Cottrere, founder of Ranch House Designs. When I started RHD over 25 years ago, it was with one simple goal: to help ranchers build better marketing so they can have higher sales and more profits, and ultimately, more success. And here's the thing, our team at Ranch House gets what it's like to be in the agriculture industry because we live it every single day. We know what it's like to juggle cattle, kids, and careers while still chasing big dreams. That's why our branding, websites, and marketing strategies are built to work in the real world for people just like you. If you're ready to grow your brand, request a free consultation today at ranchhousedesigns.com.
Yeah, you make some really good points there. And it got my wheels turning in my brain a little bit about, you had mentioned you wish that you would see some young professionals maybe give it another year so that they could see the rewards of programs that they had started. And most likely there would be opportunities to rise in that if they were to stay another year. And of course, like you said, this doesn't apply to everyone, but I'm just kind of curious how much correlation that has to social media and the instant gratification that we get from, I know, my generation being involved in honestly way too many organizations instead of devoting their time to one. And I have seen that just in my 4 years in college. My freshman year, I was involved in almost 5 or 6 different student organizations because I was just looking for what was the best. And by my junior year, I had dropped everything except for one organization and was able to completely devote my time and effort to that organization. And even though it's just been 2 years that I've been in leadership for that organization, I have seen way bigger impact and way more programs started and growth in that organization just because I did stick with it and devote my time to it instead of just looking for the next best thing, like you said.
That's a good thought, Ricki, because I do see a lot of these young people doing so many things, and I was always that person too that wanted to be involved in everything, but there wasn't as many things to be involved in when I was that age. But now there's just so many things. When you're involved in so many, you can't do any of them well enough or to the best of your ability. So you do need to prioritize, I think. And that's a good lesson. It sounds like that you have maybe already learned, but that will really benefit you later on in life. It's something we talk to our junior boards about all the time is they get spread so thin and they can't do justice to anything at that time. So maybe that's a little bit with this whole job jumping and the whole people not staying at jobs as long as maybe they used to is they might get bored. And then that's the fault of the employer if they're not keeping maybe enough for them to do because they're so used to doing so much. Maybe that is a thought I hadn't had before.
For sure. And I think that could also, on the flip side, be an opportunity for young professionals to take initiative and ask for more. If you are getting bored at work, don't be complacent and see what other parts of the business that you might be interested in, see some events or programs that are going on that might need some help that you have to offer. And who knows what that could lead into. Like you shared that you help with a variety of things at the association. I don't think that's limited to one type of business whatsoever. So if you're working for a company that your values align with theirs and they do want to invest in you as a professional, I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down with your boss or your supervisor and saying, hey, I need to reevaluate what my responsibilities are. I feel prepared or interested in taking on new things. Let that encourage you, all of our listeners out there, to maybe consider that. Well, I would like to move maybe more into kind of what the day to day of your position looks like. And from the time that I've been able to spend with you and where I've seen you at, of course, being all over the United States, your role involves quite a bit of travel and time invested in others. So, what has balancing that looked like with your personal life?
That can be a challenge and it really depends upon the season. I think the biggest thing is there are just some times of the year that I've got to be pretty devoted to the task at hand here at the office, whether it's here in the office or at different events, and just knowing when I have to be present, when I have to be here, and then also knowing when there are some times throughout the year that I can maybe take a personal day and do some things for myself because I do think that does become a juggling act, and I probably wasn't very good at it early on in my career because I really jumped in with both feet and just worked, and that's just what I did. And now as I've grown in my positions, I find it more important to take some time and do some things even before a big event. I always try to, before the Junior National Hereford Expo, maybe it's that weekend before, I try to go do something totally not related and get my mind off of it just so I'm fresh for the event and ready to roll. So I just think there are some things like that throughout the year that you do because I love to travel and I have just the right amount for my job, I think, because it is very seasonal. But there are some times when it gets a little stressful, and trying to juggle the work in the office with the travel has always been an interesting thing for me to juggle, and finding that time for family and different things like that is very important. I probably didn't do as good of a job at that in the beginning of my career. I think I do a better job now, and I think I've found a good balance that seems to work.
Yeah. So knowing how well you're able to balance it, or I like the word that you use, juggle, because I don't know that there is such thing as a work-life balance with that being a big buzzword. What advice would you give either to young women, or if you could go back 20 years and tell yourself at the beginning of your career that want to have or are interested in maybe a more demanding career, you could call it, but also having personal commitments and maybe a husband or a family, what advice would you give to them?
I think a good friend of mine, Kathy Buckholtz, has told me for many years that prior planning prevents poor performance. And I think the more we can plan and be ahead of the game and try to get a game plan and just be organized, I think that's going to help with our job and definitely help with juggling family and work and personal things. So I think the more prepared we can be throughout the year, the better off. That's probably the best advice I can give is just I think we can have these awesome careers that take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of focus, but we can have our family stuff and our personal stuff too. We've just got to be organized and we've got to plan for it.
I can't tell you how big I smiled when you shared the 5P motto that Mrs. Kathy. I have actually the 6P version on a board. Definitely a good one to live by and applicable to any season of life, any situation. Great advice. Thank you for that. We've talked about younger generations a little bit and your role and involvement with the junior board and then also with the junior nationals, the junior national show, and then just the junior association. What impact have you seen the junior association and the youth foundation have on younger generations, and why do you think that those programs are so important?
I have really seen the junior program and the Hereford Youth Foundation of America. I've just seen with my own two eyes how much of a difference it can make for these young people. The foundation started on our pillar of scholarship, and that's been kind of our foundation. It was built on scholarship endowments, and really that was our first real mission, is to give back as much as we could in scholarships. And this last year, we were able to award, I think it was $230,000 in scholarships, and 10 of those scholarships were $10,000 scholarships. And I've watched that make a difference between being able to go to college and not being able to go to college. So I just can't talk enough about how the donors have stepped up and made these scholarship opportunities possible. But now it's so much more than just scholarships. Now we have a huge education pillar, and that is not only all of the education we have with the contests at the Junior National Hereford Expo, but it's events like the Fed Steer Shootout, which is teaching these young people about the feedlot and packing industries. We just got back from our Fed Steer Shootout field day, and we just had a lot of real life situations that these young people were in. They got to do a packer simulation and a feedlot simulation, and Cargill offered some very neat workshops. They got to spend some time with Shane Bedwell learning how to evaluate the cattle at the feedlot, and just some really important things that these young people need to know about the part they play in feeding the world. So I'm super excited about our education pillar and what we've been able to do through different endowments in that. And then also leadership is a big buzzword in the National Junior Hereford Association. We had our Bold Leadership conference there in Desdemona, Texas this spring. We're getting ready for Faces of Leadership. Our junior board is a huge part of the leadership pillar, and I am pretty proud of what we've been able to do in terms of building up the young people to be the best leaders they can. We hope they go into agriculture after college. Some of them might go different paths. They might be doctors. They might be lawyers. They might go a totally different path than agriculture, but whatever career path they take, we hope we've set them up for success.
Yes, man, if that doesn't make you want to join the Hereford Association and get involved with the Youth Foundation, I don't know what would, because those opportunities are stellar. And having had some friends that have gone through y'all's programs, they're just awesome people that I know will accomplish so many great things. And like you mentioned, they might not go into agriculture. And at the end of the day, that's okay, because they're always going to be not only participants in agriculture through the food that they eat and the clothes that they wear, but they're always going to be advocates for the industry. And I think that at the end of the day, that might be one of the most important jobs and people that we always need advocating for our industry and the good work that we're doing to feed the world.
Yep, they're going to be talking about their time with the National Junior Hereford Association, and they may bring their kids back. That's what's been so cool the last few years, is actually seeing some of this generation bring their kids back. They maybe competed in the shows when they were junior members, and now they're bringing their children back. And that's been a pretty neat to watch from the sidelines, to watch that happen.
Yeah, I bet that is so bittersweet, and seeing those families stay involved in the association. But a little bit more on the younger generation that you're working with, and maybe this is more of recent years, but what would you say are maybe some of the biggest differences that you've observed in the Gen Z generation compared to the millennial generation, and having worked with kind of both?
I would start by saying that the young people coming out of college right now are so talented. I always joke, I'm not sure I would have been able to get a job with my resume in comparison to what some of these resumes look like now coming out of college. So kudos to this generation. They are definitely taking advantage of the opportunities presented to them, because they are super talented and their resumes, for the most part, are pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Definitely can see that in my peers, and a lot of go-getters out there, and iron sharpens iron. I'm sure that we're all just pushing each other to be better, and I can't wait to see how that translates to the younger generation that kids like my little sister are part of. So super excited for how they'll make an impact and get involved in different things. Would you say that maybe there are some areas that our generation could improve on?
One thing we talked about there for a while, and I think we blamed too much on COVID probably, but there was so much time that you would go to conferences and you would go to events, and everybody's just glued to their phones and just didn't have another life other than looking at their cell phones. And in the last year to year and a half, 2 years maybe, I've seen that kind of start to change. And that's really refreshing, that I think we're moving past that. Yes, we have to have our cell phones to get through the day, but we're maybe not married to them, and we can actually carry on a conversation a little better than we could 3 or 4 years ago. I think I've just noticed that maybe in this last season of events we've had, that's starting to change a little bit. And I think that's pretty encouraging.
For sure. That's really exciting. One of my biggest pet peeves when I go to events, and especially if it's an event that is built on networking and people have their phones out, what's the point of being there? So I'm glad that you've also noticed that and that it's changing for the better. Just to round us out, I know we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about this generation just because of how much experience you do have working one-on-one with the junior board and all of that. Would you say that there are any ways that students coming out of college could stand out early in their careers?
I really think being willing to be present and go that extra mile. And I know there's a lot of research and talk about remote workforces and being in the office and things like that. And I think there's a place for both. But I do think early on in your career, the best advice I can get is you've really got to go into an office and have to show up for work every day and have to look your best and have to work with the staff one-on-one in person and really pay your dues in an office setting. Now, I'm not saying you can't work remote at some point. Heck, I might want to work at remote at some point in my career, but I really do think that this younger generation is pretty quick to say, oh, I have to work remote. I'm only going to work remote. It's got to be a remote job. I can't move. I think one of the best things I ever did is I had to get pretty brave to move by myself to Kansas City, Missouri, but it's one of the better things I ever did. So I think that's probably the best advice I could give is, you know what? Go and show up and be present, work in an office setting for a few years, and really just going to teach you so much about life and working with people that you cannot learn on a Zoom room.
For sure. That is great. My friends always joke that I have an old soul, but I had one remote job during college and I absolutely hated it. It could have been the highest paying job. I could have loved the work I was doing, but I didn't have that interaction. And I think maybe a lot of that also just stems from having gone through high school during COVID and having those withdrawals of personal and social interaction. I definitely encourage, just like you said, everyone to earn their keep and to go into an office setting. And it's not always going to be fun, and maybe you're going to have some hard days, but that's definitely going to build you a lot faster as a young professional and as a person than staying at home all day, getting on Zoom meetings in your pajama pants. So
And you don't have to do it forever, but I just really think you can learn a lot, especially in the early years of your career.
there is so much to learn, and the fastest way to learn is through other people. So got to get around them if you want to be around them, if you want to learn from them.
Yep, totally right.
Wonderful. Miss Amy, is there any other advice or any other topics that you wanted to share with our listeners today?
Oh, Ricki, I think it's been a good visit. We've talked about a lot of different things, but whatever I could say to encourage young people to just really have a do it now mindset, I think, and I can be guilty of this on occasion, is we put off what we could do. We put off till tomorrow what we could do today. And if you just really have a do it now mindset, it'll just really help you in any job, any boards you're on, anywhere really in life. Is just, if you can get it done today, just really try to get it done, because procrastination never helps, I don't think. And that all goes with what I said earlier, just being prepared and paying attention to detail. I just always tell my crew, some of the littlest details make the biggest difference in the end. And I think at the end of the day, those details are what separates a good junior national from a great junior national. So to me, details are pretty important, and that all goes with being prepared and trying not to procrastinate.
100%. That was great advice to round us out. And before we conclude the episode, I do have a couple of rapid fire questions for you. So if you're ready, what is your favorite show to attend or facilitate?
Oh, that's easy. Junior National Hereford Expo, without a doubt.
Do you have a favorite city that you've hosted it in?
Oh, there's been a lot of good ones, but some of my most memorable ones have probably been, I'd say, Grand Island, Nebraska, and right here in Kansas City.
Is there something that you can't function without during shows?
Oh, yeah, I got to have some unsweet iced tea to get through the day most days.
Okay, I love that you're an unsweet iced tea girl, because I'm the same and I get so much rap for it.
Oh, no, I got to have it unsweet. Yeah.
Then you don't feel as guilty when you drink as much. Do you have a favorite stock show fashion trend?
Oh, my, I don't know if I am the most trendy, but I do appreciate a good fringe scarf and some turquoise jewelry.
Okay, good answers. And then lastly, where can our listeners find you?
I have a Facebook account, and then if you go to hereford.org to our junior page, you can find me there.
Ladies, thank you for joining us on today's episode. Amy's career is a powerful reminder that impact isn't always about moving on. It's often about staying, investing, and growing where you're planted. Through her leadership, mentorship, and commitment to the Hereford industry, she has helped shape generations of young people and strengthened a community that will last far beyond any single role. Her story challenges us to think differently about success, not just as movement, but as meaningful, lasting influence. With that, be sure to follow our page and join our group on Facebook, where you can get updates about the podcast, ask questions, and even share motivation with other young girls and women in the stock show industry. Until next time, sisters, this is your co-host, Ricki Nardiello, and I hope you have a fabulous week.